Welcome everyone to the webinar series 2024. A welcome note by Natasha Jalou, Director of Medical Affairs Europe, Medela.
Yes, good afternoon, dear participants. My name is Natasha Jalou. I am the Head of Medical Affairs Europe at Medela. For Medela, it is very important that healthcare professionals are provided education about human milk, especially when it is about the most vulnerable infants and sick preterm babies. That's why we are really thankful to support EMBA and their webinar series. Before we start, I would like to share with you some housekeeping rules. You can ask questions whenever you want during the webinar using this box at the right-hand side of your screen. You have to open this small box where you find the arrow beside questions and write your question. And at the end of the session, we will provide you some answers. So we will have the speakers giving you the answers to your question. You will also have the possibility of downloading a certificate at the end of the webinar. And last but not least, in order for us and for EMBA to improve the quality of our webinar, it would be very nice if you would take some minutes to answer a small survey at the end of this webinar. And now I give over the word to Professor Guido Moro.
Good morning to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. Even because I am a neonatologist, I am deeply involved in human milk, donor milk, and all this question related to infant nutrition. You know that in Europe today there is a high increase in the number of human milk banks, and that means that this problem is becoming hotter and hotter. But there are many differences between the human milk banks working in Europe. And today we will try to define the operational models in a couple of human milk banks in Europe. One will be in Germany and the other will be in Israel. So the two speakers are two very excellent speakers, and I think that we have to change the order of the speakers. The first one will be Daniel. He's Daniel Klotz. He's a neonatal and pediatric intensive care specialist. He's working in Freiburg, and he opened the donor human milk bank in Freiburg. And he's an initiation and board member of the German Human Milk Banks Initiative and board member of the European Milk Bank Association. His research interests comprise the use and handling of human milk for premature infants. So, Daniel, please, it's your turn.
Thank you, Guido, for this introduction. And thank you for inviting me and sharing our story about human milk banking and human milk bank networks here in Germany. Let me share my screen with you.
You can go to full mode now. We are seeing your screen, Daniel.
Okay. So.
Can you go to full screen now?
You can see my screen? Okay, excellent.
Yes, but it's not full mode.
So now you can see my full mode screen, I hope.
This is okay.
Okay, excellent. All right. So my topic today will be about models to increase the availability of donor human milk. And I have to tell you, this is a very special chapter we're talking about regarding to lactation and lactation support, because you have to see we're dealing with very, very small babies in our neonatal intensive care units. And the question we are asking ourselves, how do we feed the babies, or where's the milk to feed those babies? And obviously, and this is very well known to everybody of you, we want to feed them with human milk only. Why do we do that? Because we know that the outcome of those babies is much better if we feed them with human milk. For example, if you want to avoid necrotizing enterocolitis, or if we want to improve the feeding enhancement of our babies. So our aim is to provide human milk, and obviously we would like to provide mother's own milk. So the question is, how good are we in providing mother's own milk to our premature babies? So if we look at Germany, we have to admit that we could do better. Asking around 450 parents, how was your baby fed in the neonatal intensive care unit in one of the German university hospitals? And then you can see that only the minority received exclusively mother's own milk, some most of the times, and some none at all. And it's basically a similar picture from the United States, here published in 2019, where you can see, divided by US region or maternal race and ethnicity, that you can see that none of the babies in those neonatal intensive care units received, not every one of those babies received human milk. So obviously, and this is your basic job as a lactation specialist, there are a lot of barriers to overcome for infant access to fresh mother's milk, and those barriers, they're well known, and this is basically your daily business. But still, we need to feed babies human milk. So what are the alternatives? And this is what we're here to talk about. Obviously, it's donated human milk. And milk banking, here you can see an historical picture from one of the milk banks in Germany, is, at least in Germany, going on since 1909. So obviously, and you're all aware of that, human milk banking is really a growing endeavor. And you can see here all the different milk banks from the Human Milk Bank Global Map within worldwide, and you can see clusters in Europe and in Brazil, obviously, as well in India and Southeast Asia. So the number of milk banks is steadily increasing, not only worldwide, but also in Europe. But the one problem remains. We don't have data about the number of preterm babies that are eligible for or receiving donor human milk in the first place. So we actually don't know, do we feed all babies without mother's own milk with donor milk? We have a lot of milk banks, but we can't answer that question, which would be actually the most important one. So if we look again at Germany and we can say, well, how good are we in feeding donor milk? We can say, well, we could do much better again. So 60% of those babies from those around 500 mothers who were asked, did your baby receive donor milk in the NICU? They said no. And at the same time, a lot of babies received formula. So obviously the problem here is obvious. We don't know why those babies did not receive donor human milk. Was there an excellent lactation support, making it not necessary to provide donor milk? We just don't know. The same is true in the UK. So we have here different neonatal networks caring for premature, very low birth weight infants. And we can see the intensity of pasteurized human donor milk use is different across those networks. We have some networks we have a very low rate of use and some with very high rate of use. But again, perhaps those units here at the very left are doing a very good job at the lactation support and they don't need it. So we just don't know. The same with the US. You can see around 616 hospitals were being asked, do you have donor milk available? There were some actually who didn't, but that was the minority. But then again, if you ask what was the percentage of infant receiving donor milk, you can see very mixed numbers here. So again, we don't know do all those babies that receive donor milk really need donor milk, or does the mother need more lactation support, or are those babies fed with formula instead of donor milk? And here is a survey from Japan published in 2019, which says, well, the majority of those neonatal units participating in the survey don't use donor human milk. So the question is, why are we failing to provide donor milk to infants without the mother's own milk? And I can at least tell you about our German experience. If you look at the neonatal intensive care, how it's organized within Germany, you can see that we have around 750,000 births per year. That's in a population of around 80 million. We have 60,000 preterm infants below the gestational age of 37 weeks. And of those, we have 10,000 very low birth weights per year. So that's a fair number, but you have to see, we have 211 neonatal care units across Germany. So that means we have an average of around 50 of those little babies per unit per year. So this is the, we have to say, political reality that we have way too many neonatal intensive care units. Then, of those 211 neonatal care units, 41 have donor human milk available. And in those 41 units, 2,600 babies being cared for per year. So that means if you break down the numbers, you come to around 30% of very low birth weight infants who have access to human milk. So this is about access. This is not about how many do actually receive donor human milk. So what are the barriers for the use? And this was published in 2018, and you can see, well, if donor human milk is unavailable in your unit, you can't use it. And there's actually no way you can purchase non-commercialized donor human milk. And then again, some say it's very cumbersome to procure donor human milk, to set up a milk bank. And at the other hand, you have to also see that formula actually is quite inexpensive in comparison. So the question is, what do you need to provide donor milk to infants without mother's own milk? Well, I would say the first would be milk banks. And we did a survey in 2022, and the actual reality is the European milk bank model is a standalone model. That means every milk bank, with few exemptions in Europe, are located and operated by a neonatal unit and is only procuring milk and dispensing milks to the baby of their own unit. And I want to zoom into Germany, and we'll come back to those NICUs, those 41 NICUs who do have a milk bank. You can see an overview here. It's fairly scattered across the country. And obviously, the advantage if you have a milk bank in your own unit would be that you have increased breastfeeding rates. So we've seen that in our unit actually. So it took like 2 years to set up the milk bank. And once we opened, we didn't use any donor milk for half a year because everybody was so focused on lactation support and how do we support babies to get their mother's own milk. Then at the same time, the way you use the milk, the way you treat the milk reflects your own policy and unit beliefs, so that this can be an advantage. And obviously you can adjust demand and supply very good if you're only responsible for your unit and you procure the milk in your unit. And obviously, so what happens very often and what happened to us a lot of time, we do have a limited donor pool and we run out of milk on a pretty regular basis because we just have a very unpredictable supply. And just yesterday, triplets were born, and fortunately, this time we can cover their demand, but that's not always the case, or at least used to be the case. So what we started with after we increased our procurement, and we do have a lot of human milk available even for other hospitals, we started to distribute those milk to other hospitals. So that was a way to enable those hospitals to acquire non-commercialized donor human milk. And we did increase the human milk utilization rate in our fellow partner hospitals. And obviously this contributes to equity access. So not only the babies in our unit, but the babies in our unit can also receive donor human milk. Possible disadvantage? Well, just only because we could increase the breastfeeding rate in our unit, that must not necessarily be the same in the unit which just receives donor human milk. So there is a risk that donor human milk is seen as just another alternative available on the cupboard. You take it from the shelf, you give it from the baby without thinking to increase your mother's milk supply. Then there's obviously a dependency of the recipient hospital. If we don't have any milk, we can't distribute it, so constant supply is not guaranteed. And then at the same time, there are not many high-capacity milk banks like ours who can distribute milk to other units. So, and by the way, we weren't the first one to distribute. Actually, Charité in Berlin and Leipzig in Saxonia, they were the first ones to distribute milk, and they actually did it by plane to the Netherlands and other parts of Germany as well. Well, I would say today, you would say it's very unsustainable. So what do we do today? Today we use a bicycle courier, and I think that's much more environmentally friendly. Coming back to milk bank models. So what we did in the next step is we set up so-called milk collection depots. So we have another hospital which is interested in acquiring human milk. And what we do, instead of just sending milk to them, we enable them to procure milk from mothers of inborn babies and to send this milk to us. So to recruit a donor within their own facility for us in our name, which by the way makes it much more easier regarding data protection regulations. And then those data and samples, blood samples from the potential donor is forwarded to our unit for screening. So that also means they don't have any expenses with the virology testing or serology testing, because this is all done in our unit. And we collect the milk, or the depot is collecting the milk after we approve the donor. And we pick up the milk frozen in, I will come back to that. And they are being delivered to us, where we process and store the milk. We integrate the milk and the donor information in our own tracking systems. And then, if need be, we distribute the milk to the depot or to other hospitals. And obviously, the next step would be for those participating hospitals that they actually not only procure the milk from their inpatient mothers, but they only procure milk from donors in the community. And they can even become a self-sufficient milk bank by implementing their own protocols. And you can even take this a step further, and you can say that different hubs are, like different larger milk banks, are connected or interconnected. And if there is any lag or any problems with milk supply, we can just exchange the milk. And this system even enables you to provide milk to hospitals who don't have the means to serve as a milk bank depot and to procure milk from donors in their own unit. So obviously, this has a lot of possible advantages. Economy of scales, for example. So if one smaller hospital needs to screen, like, let's say 10 donors, so this is an amount which actually they need to pay an amount where the discussion starts where and who is gonna responsible for that. If they send those samples to us, we just put them into the constant stream of diagnostics, which is running through. Actually, I try to gather the information. How much do we actually pay for these screenings? And the colleagues from the respective department, they just told me, well, don't bother to look. It's just you can't find those costs. They're just buried with all the other costs. It's really not a lot. So this is the economy of scales. And then obviously we can collect data about babies. Who is actually getting milk? Who do we really feed milk to those babies who need it? And the aim of everything is to decrease the barriers, to make it as easy as possible for the depots to receive milk and to feed milk, donor milk if need be, to their own patients. At the same time, disadvantages, you have to talk about carbon footprint. There's a lot of delivery back and forth. There's a lot of packing materials you need to use, and so this needs to be in the back of our heads. How can we reduce the carbon footprint of our delivery and of our service? Obviously, milk is frozen at least once, more often twice. So this raises concerns about milk quality, where we also need to see, is the milk we are receiving age-wise and regarding bacterial content, is that the milk we really can safely process and which we can safely distribute? I want to screen in a little bit further from Germany and our own region. We are down here in the south in Freiburg. And so we started a while ago to, as I highlighted before, to distribute milk to different neonatal units. And we have another very active milk bank in Winnenden. And they also started to distribute. And so what we did is we interconnected, and basically we formed the first network, and we're aiming to integrate further satellite milk banks and further larger hubs into this system. And I hope that by next year we will be able to show you data about the increase of human milk bank utilization in our region, and then I'm more able to tell you about what it needed from the financial side to set the system up. Because, and you have to be, we have to be clear about this, there are many opportunities, but there are also barriers if you set up a milk bank. So as I said before, all milk banks are part of neonatal departments. So they have their own belief and their own belief system, I would say, what is right and wrong. And then even in such a small matter like how do we deal with the milk to come on equal terms, that can be very difficult because even each milk bank has its very own unique protocols. I think if you're dealing with milk, donor human milk and milk banks, you're well aware of that. And then you have to see the milk provision is not reimbursed by any healthcare provider. And that means any costs that accrue during this process is being paid by the hospital itself. And this can be quite tricky. How do you, if you dispense milk, how do you reimburse from hospital? So you need contracts, and if you want to have contract from your contract department, that can be quite difficult and can take quite a while. And then it's the question, pasteurized or non-pasteurized donor milk. So I told you I showed you the hub in Winnenden we have. They use non-pasteurized donor milk. We use pasteurized donor milk. So that makes it actually sometimes difficult to exchange milk. Then you have to see we have separate regulations in federal states. This can, regarding human milk and the definition of human milk, that can be a problem. We are, I would say, semi-digitalized. If you consider a fax machine as digitalization, then yes, we do have some digital features in our milk bank. Otherwise, it's paper and pen. And then we have different recipients in different units. So if you have one milk bank that is dispensing donor milk on the well baby ward, and you have another hospital without a milk bank that does not have enough donor milk for the very, very preterm babies, there is a certain imbalance, and this you have to really make sure that within your network you have to have some equity of access to this human milk. So to come to a conclusion, we set up a milk bank here in the Southwest, and we do actually have a very active milk bank in our capital in Berlin as well, which is actually much easier because we have a used area to cover, at least for German standards, and Berlin, it's in the end a smallish town as well, so it's much more easier for transport there. And then there will be another one in Saxony, and we hope to increase the number of milk bank networks in Germany. So what do you need? You need most certainly a critical number of high capacity milk banks. You need to have a total transparency in the network. Where is the milk actually going? Who is receiving the milk? And you have to have a little bit of, I would say, operational flexibility. So if you really not flexible, and then it will be really difficult to bring all those different beliefs about milk banking. How should milk be used? How should milk be processed? That together, then it's very difficult to set up a network. And then you have to have some funding, but actually you don't need that much funding. There's an active milk banking network in Spain. It's a little bit difficult. They did not publish a lot of their experience, but they did publish here analysis of the costs. So my Spanish proficiency is not very good, but I can read the numbers. So you have here two different models. So here you have a standalone milk bank, a very self-sufficient milk bank, and you here have a satellite system, satellite milk bank. And there's obviously in the implementation, it's a big reduction in costs. It's much more cost efficient to set up a satellite milk bank instead to set up a self-sufficient milk bank. These are actually exactly the numbers which our satellites needed to invest. These were for 2 or 3 freezers. They don't invested anything other than that. Then you have the running costs, and obviously it really depends how you manage the milk, how you treat the milk. That can be very different. As I showed you, those costs in the satellite centers, they don't appear in our system, in our networks. But then again, even there, here in Spain, you have a big cost reduction, so it's even less costly. And Tuscany has a milk bank network as well. There, again, not much published about this, but they were able to feed 90% of their babies with human milk, published in 2018. So, and then if you dive into the literature and you look a little bit in the past, you can see that everything I just told you, it's basically a reinvention, because that idea goes back a long while, and finally we are about to establish this in Germany. So conclusion for at least Germany, so there's probably no one model fits all approach. We have a highly variable local and federal clinical practice. The regional networks, they may improve availability. We can see that at least in our network, and they may contribute to the quality of care. So what do we need to provide donor milk to infants without mother's own milk? Before I said milk banks, but actually, and you're right, even more important are breastfeeding mothers, because we need the milk in the first place. So we need to get our objectives right. What we want as neonatologists for our preterm babies, obviously, is no necrotizing enterocolitis. We need to increase the rate of breastfed babies at discharge. We use donor human milk only after sufficient lactation support, and we strive for an equity access for all babies. and we need to collect data for informed decisions. How do we proceed with our networks? Obviously, it's not about counting how many milk banks you have, but it's counting breastfed babies. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Daniel. Guido, can you come in on camera?
Yes, thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. It's a very interesting model, but the discussion will be done at the end of the session. So now it's the time for the second speaker of the day, which is Dr. Sharon Bransburg from Israel. She is director of the National Human Milk Bank of Israel, of Magen David Adom, Israel, and she is a biochemist from the Tel Aviv University. She previously worked as clinical implementation specialist in MyMilk Laboratories and as vice president of clinical operation in Nutris. She has also collaborated as a researcher in the fields of computational immunology, human development, and human milk studies, and acted as head of the bioinformatics unit of the Tel Aviv University. The title of her presentation is Usage of Infants' Food Regulation in the National Human Milk Bank of Israel, Addressing the Needs of Term Infants. Please, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank you for inviting me. And in my previous presentation, it was just after the war began in Israel, and I was very emotional. I hope I will be able to deal with it this time. I'm happy to talk after Daniel because I believe we will provide a wider approach of human milk banking as the Israeli model is quite different. And okay, so we are a national facility, which means that we provide milk to all needed infants in Israel. There will be no other milk bank, or currently there is no other milk bank. We are part of the National Blood Services, which is part of Magen David Adom, which I will give some more information in a few seconds. And we work together with the Ministry of Health. This is a joint service, a joint project, which means that we work with the government in order to provide a better health and beginning to needed infants in Israel. Magen David Adom is the National Emergency Medical Services service. I think it is important to know that Magen David Adom is part of the Red Cross, similar to the Red Crescent. And in Magen David Adom, we work together. All people of Israel, no matter what is your religion, what is your color, or what is your gender. I think that this photo is a good presentation of the way that we work together. This is an ambulance, and you can see the Muslim is praying, directing Mecca, and Jewish is praying, heading Jerusalem, and they are working together on the same shift. Here in the National Human Milk Bank of Israel, we work together. We have Orthodox Jewish, we have Orthodox Muslims, and we work together hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, in order to provide milk and help needed infants all over Israel. So, as part of the National Medical Service, as part of Magen David Adom, we were prepared for emergency crisis, mainly natural disasters that are quite common. Israel is in a geographic area that is prone to earthquakes, and all the time even before we started to establish the milk bank, we were in the back of our heads always kept in mind that we should be prepared for emergencies. As Israel is located in here, when we cannot rely on our neighbors, and we need to be independent and be able to provide good medical care to all needed citizens all over Israel. In that light, I would like also to mention that the CDC recommends and has specific guidelines regarding disasters, and even the American Association of Pediatrics. And of course, those guidelines are in the light of supporting breastfeeding. I'm also a lactation consultant. I'm La Leche leader. Breastfeeding is my main goal for more than 25 years. Nevertheless, we should also keep in mind that not all infants are breastfeeding during the disaster itself. And we should help them, and we should provide them with good nutrition. Some of them cannot rely on formula. And although formula or infant food is considered to be the disaster food in case there is no access to human milk, we should keep in mind that there can be serious problems with shortage of formula, with the shortage of clean water, and especially in a country such as Israel, which is relied on import for the ingredients of formula. We should keep in mind that needed infants, chronically sick infants may be damaged by this shortage more than others, and we should try to find a solution ahead before the disaster happens and we may damage them. So actually, if you look at even in the documents of the AAP, you can translate it to how human milk may benefit or may serve as the ideal emergency food. It is, if it's kept and being processed by a certified human milk bank, it should be kept as a safe, and it is reliable, and it can be fed to all infants, even those with very variety of medical conditions. So actually, we always oriented of improving our ability to provide human milk during upraising of demands due to emergencies. And this is how we designed the facility. So beside our daily work, which is what everybody is doing, we should provide milk to neonatal intensive care units. We also provide milk to sick newborns. We kept in mind that we should add to it the need to address the needs of more recipients during time of emergency. And I had, I think, a rare opportunity to design an infrastructure that I can put my own point of view to it. And in my perspective, every drop counts. Even not just as a part of the blood services in Israel that had some issues with refusing to process blood from Jews from Ethiopia that were from endemic HIV area. This is also my personal point of view as someone who breastfed for more than 12 years of her life and pumped for more than 2 years. So I try to integrate everything into one model that will be able also to fulfill the ideals, and that I will be able to stand in the role of National Human Milk Bank, the daily work, the regular job, the daily work, and being able to stand up in times of need and disasters. So on top of that, as a part of the blood of a blood facility, my supervisor is the head of the National Blood Services. I had to define very strictly the way that we are processing the milk. We had to validate everything. Everything is in the eye of blood banking, which is more strict than just than food industry, or than I think most of the human milk banks in other countries. And it took us a while to find the balance. And currently, as we consider this very similar to the way that blood banking is considered as therapy in blood, we are therapy, nutritional therapy, and as such, we should stand in both regulation, the part of the tissue banking, part of the blood banking, and the food regulation. So we needed to solve all those problems, and this is our Magen David Adom. We try to be ethics. This is, I think, one of the very important pillars of every tissue banking or every infrastructure that deals with human consumption. Of course, we need to maintain safety, accessibility, affordability, as we cannot allow ourselves not to be able to build ourselves for the future regarding the budget. We should be also sustainable in the fact that we should continue to support breastfeeding. Otherwise, the community won't be able to provide us with enough milk. And of course, quality is something that should be said. This is something that we should always keep in mind. As a lactation consultant, I am aware that although human milk is the ideal emulsion of a variety of tissues, while it is pumped, it may be unbalanced in terms of nutritional quality, in terms of biofunctional properties. So quality is something that should be taken into account when we discuss milk banks. After the 7th of October, I approached the Ministry of Health and suggested that we can use our, it was quite minor, emergency reserves of milk. We had approximately 350 liters of milk that I kept in my 80 freezers. And together with the Ministry of Health, we decided on a model that every infant that does not have access to the biological mother's milk will be entitled to milk, pasteurized milk from the milk bank. And we didn't even consider exactly how many babies there will be, how many liters we will need. We just knew that we needed to do that in order to help the mothers that were recruited to the army, that were recruited on duty, to help the mothers that were unable to breastfeed their own infant due to being traumatized by the events. And we felt obligated. So this is our role, and we should find a way to deal with it. And luckily, I will start with the bottom line. We were able to do that. We were able to continue to provide the constant need of the neonatal intensive care units all over Israel, and in addition to the needs of the war infants. And with the financial support of the Ministry of Health. And this is the opportunity to thank the Professor Dr. Dina Zimmerman and the people from the Ministry of Health for really help us, and for the it was unbelievable, the response of the Israeli mothers, Jewish, Arabs, Christians, Druze from all over, that came to us and suggested to donate milk. And once we started the project, it was very clear to all of us, human milk is not just a nutrition. It is a tiny dose of mommy. And those mothers who were unable to continue to provide their own milk or continue to breastfeed their own infants, for them, it was a treasure. It was something which they could even imagine, the way that it provided them to continue the contact, to continue the constant contact with the biological infant, with the proxy of another mother. So it is a unique model. And if you can see the numbers, in black, you can see the numbers that we provide, the volumes, the monthly volumes of milk that we provide to neonatal intensive care units in Israel. And in blue, you are able to see the numbers of the war infant. We started to provide milk in mid-October. So we provide 250, and then we provide 260, and then we continue to, and until now we provided almost 1.6, let's say we can translate it to tons of pasteurized donor milk to the war infants all over Israel. And we were able to do that partially because we built a different model of screening and processing the milk. Actually, I think the hint was, I'm quoting an article, but it's all over with all the articles about human milk, about the HACCP and the need of auto control. And for me, it was clear that we should find a way to further analysis the processes of the human during, or the processes that have been done to the milk during the in the facility or prior of arriving to the facility. And those are not just rigid steps. We should find a way to even go deeper and analyze them and make them better. So although this scheme is very full, I will concentrate only on a few points that we were able to change. The first one is the fact that we are providing the mothers with milk bags, for an example, that are light proof, that are able to that we can store in -80 freezers. They are very thick milk bags, and this is only one example of the way that we can improve the quality of the milk. We guide them with the knowledge, with our knowledge as a lactation consultant, and to improve the pumping and the hygienes. But I think the main advantage that we were able to gain was during the processing of the facility itself. And this is not just a black box. The processing prior to pasteurization this is not just something that you should feel that you are adventure to do so, or you should guess what will be the results. We can build a process, a pre-screening process that will allow us to be sure prior to doing the pasteurization process itself whether this process will be successful and we will have a good batch. when I say good batch, I mean that it will be able to stand in the microbiology testing and also the nutrition and analysis. So I'm moving ahead, and what I found during my studies when I studied this all the material, that there are actually two regulations. There is a regulation that the Human Milk Bank are using, which I will call the PRIMI grade, and there is also the infant food grade, which is more liberate. For an example, in infant formula, there is a certain amount of Bacillus cereus that can be found. And so actually, if there is no access to PRIMI grade human milk, the alternative is regular formula, which is in the infant food grade. So actually, we use the infant grade to provide milk to infants that are not newborn and are not preemies. So in this way, perhaps we will have zero waste. Perhaps we will be able to use more milk, and we won't need to discard so many volumes or large percentage of the processed milk. So, and indeed, we built a model, and we decided to pool between 4 and 10 donors, and we also do our nutritional profiling prior to doing so. But what we did is actually say we are not going to guess the results. We are going to test we're going to test the milk and see if it is going to be a good batch. So we are doing a pre-screening process. We take 2% of the volume is considered in the food industry as representative volume. So we're using this rule, and we are taking 20% of the volume in syringes, and the syringes are being checked for raw microbiology tests, and we also for nutritional profiling, and also we pasteurize the syringes. I will be able to show you in a minute. We pasteurize the syringes inside a bottle of water, and we are able to check whether there are Bacillus cereus, if there are spores in the milk or not. So actually, each batch is pre-screened prior to moving to the actual pasteurization process. And thanks to that, we are able to find or locate women that have Bacillus cereus in their milk, that may have unbalanced pumped milk, and we are able to exclude them. Sometimes we can talk to the mother, explain to them, and we can get additional volume of milk. And in some cases, we cannot, the mother is unwilling to continue, and we cannot continue with this mother. So once we finish with the pre-screening process, and we also keep in mind that we should stand into regulation. Of course, the batches with the better nutritional profiling, we are saving for the PRIMI grade. We are also saving for the PRIMI grade the batches that has that can stand in the regulation of the PRIMI, which means low Enterobacteriacea and low staph counts. But we can also keep in mind, and we must keep in mind, that perhaps those batches will be able to provide to mature infants, so we can use them for older infants, and there is no need to throw this milk away. In that sense, I would like to say that I know that many banks, especially in Europe, use the total aerobic count as a measure. I would like to say that we tested it, and it seems that as mother pump at their houses, and sometimes there is there is times that the milk is exposed to the environment, the home, domestic environment. The total aerobic count does not represent the quality of the milk, the microbiology potential of the milk in the same way that it is represented in the food industry. So we just use it as a quality measure during the process, but it does not an entry measure to confirm or to refuse this milk. I will show you for several videos the way that we process the milk. We process the milk every time we open the milk. It is done in laminar chamber. We use a yellow light filter in order to filter out the blue wavelengths that have a high energy and can damage the vitamin in milk, very similar to the way that TPN is being protected. And once the glass container are full, we are taking samples using a feeding tube that is food grade and we can be in direct touch with the milk, and this is the way that where the samples are being drawn from the milk. Later on, during the pasteurization, the milk is cold, so we stir the milk for more than 10 minutes, and then we use the pump in order to fill the bottles that are being sent to later on to the infants. We validated all our approach with the pre-screening, and we confirmed that indeed this approach, when we union several dates of the same mother into one glass container, then we take a representative volume out, and then we continue to that. Everything is validated. We do not lose a lot of the milk component during this process, but nevertheless, we kept on trying to try to improve ourselves. And in this slide, you can see the nutritional profiling of all the batches that we processed during since we started working in the early of 2020. In red, you can see the premature batches. In green, you can see the mature batches. They are being separated. And I marked on the graph the border between 60 kilocal per 100 ml to 17, order 65, in order that the numbers will be clear. And you can see several trends in the mature analysis. You can see that in the beginning, the average calorie intake was 65, and then we managed to improve it to a little more than 67.5. And currently we are above 70 kilocal per 100 ml, which is a very, very good calorie intake. And I would like to show you the way that we analyze the process doing HACCP methodology and manage to and find a way how to improve our results. So the hint was that human milk is not homogeneous, and there are you can find milk fat globules. Mainly globules are composed of fats and casein protein, and those are very, very tricky to work with. In the beginning, we started with 3.8 average of fat level, and then we managed to improve it to 4.1, and currently we are standing on 4.4 % of fat, which is very, very good. In order not to waste any of the fat that has been adsorbed to the surface of the glass container, we're doing a bathing, hot bathing to the glass. containers in order to remove all the debris and all the materials and especially micelles that are absorbed to the surface of the container. And this is one improvement that we did. Additional improvement which we just enter in the beginning after we are doing the beauty treatment to the glass containers. It was very difficult to clean the battles, and it took us a very long time, and you can see it was very unpleasant work to clean each battle separately, and it was hard work. So we improve it, and this is our second improvement. And currently we use a vacuum pump, stainless steel, with stainless steel. All parts are approved for for food industry. And we actually use the suction in order to suction the bottles and to take all the adsorbed components from the walls of the bottles. And indeed, once we finish with them, the bottles are clean as new ones. We had also had to identify other risk stages, such that are relevant to the way that we worked, and this is part of HACCP. HACCP is a daily job of identifying central risky points and try to improve them in order to improve your product. And there are plenty of steps that we find ourselves as we are able to check the milk of the mothers in the syringe to the almost final product during the pasteurization hall. And this is why we can identify if there are cases when our work protocol is incorrect. Perhaps we are doing some mistakes, and indeed we can improve it. We improve it all the time. And beside the process of improving our product, we are able also to take some of the milk that is infant food grade and keep it aside. And this was our emergency reserve. I will just a few final points I would like to show. An example of the way that HACCP guides us into finding a new solution. Usually when we work with a milk bag, you take the frozen milk bag and you throw it in a refrigerator. And then we realize that in many cases, we can find tears in the bags and you need to throw the milk away. This is why we change the way that we throw the milk. We clean the frozen milk bags and we work with them when the milk is still frozen. And then we open them and all the frozen, let's say, milk cubes is being put in a sterile stainless steel box. And while it is still frozen, and then it is being thawed in this box, so we can, and it was validated. And in that way, we were able to maintain our ideal of saving every drop, so we can work with the better quality bags of our milk bag, and also to work with the regular milk bags that we get from others. And during the crisis, let's say, or after the 7th of October, when we recruited plenty of milk from, we triple our the donor numbers that we recruited per month. We started moving with some batches that are that are not pre-screened milks, that are not pre-screened. And we were able to show that if we are not doing any screening, we get 50% less calories per 100 ml, and we get a 20% decrease in the milks that he was able to stand in the premium regulation. So actually, we can see that the way that we do our regular job is a good way to to reduce the numbers of faulty batches and to improve the nutritional profiling of the pasteurized donor milk. I would like to sum up with the fact that I think this is the first time that human milk was part of the emergency services that are providing during disaster. It was a real-time demonstration, I think, of availability, of the vital availability of human milk, even in times that you may think that infant formula is good. Indeed, it is good in time of disaster. It can save life, but if you could provide human milk, it is much better. Also, in terms, or not just in terms of the infant, but also in terms of the mothers who are feeling or feeling relief that their infant is being given with human milk. So 2 more slides. Usually we save the milk in minus 80, and in order to extend our shelf life, and this is why we can preserve the 3 months of expiration, even if the milk is kept in our freezer for a longer time. And during the war, we started to use a shelter, a minus 30 degrees shelter at the facility, and all the milk is being kept there in a very safe storage until we are able to process it. So I would like to end up with thanking our wonderful team. Hadar is my partner for many years. We have many volunteers who help us. The mothers from all over Israel, Magen David Adom supports me this project, and the Ministry of Health, of course, for being a very good partner with us. I would end up with the statement that we are feeling in Israel that until everyone is here, we are all there. And that I end up with the prophets of Isha, that each time it is really something that I feel that it should be spoken more, that nation shall not lift up sword against nation, and war shouldn't be learned anymore. And I hope that we'll be able to use this knowledge not just in times of war, but also in times of peace. This is a good demonstration that human milk is something which should be a vital to all care of newborns, premature, mature infants, and medically needed infants. Human milk are here to stay, and we are here to grow and be part of all medical services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yair Sharon. Guido, do you wish to come on camera?
Yes, so we had 2 very interesting presentations, 2 different systems. One is working in Germany and one in Israel. And the system in Israel has been organized also for emergency situation. That is a new aspect, a new chapter of Human Milk Bank's organization. And we are trying also in Europe, in other countries in Europe, to have such a system. But unfortunately, it has been used till now only for wars, like we have seen in Ukraine and like we have seen in Israel. The project is to have something like this system working in peaceful situation. Disaster, natural disaster, of course, but not in war. So I think that now there is time for discussion, and I will check if there are already some questions for our speakers. Okay, I am sorry to tell to the organizer that I cannot see any question because in the screen I'm not able to see that part of the screen. It's happened when we tried with the system before.
No problem, Guido. We can help you reading the questions.
Okay, yes.
The first question says, Daniel raised an important issue at the beginning. We can't really say at the moment what the infants are feeding. Is it mother's own milk, donor human milk, or formula? To make a clear statement here, we will have to track the amounts of percentages of the nutritional intake of all three, right? Then we will also see, for example, if someone is feeding DHM, did they only avoid formula the first few days, or did they also support the mother in lactation? Dear Daniel?
Sorry, I didn't get that question. I just got the first part, that we don't know what babies are actually feeding. And I think it's not only regarding what kind of milk they are getting, it's also, as mentioned, what kind of substitutes they're receiving in their milk. Could you repeat the second part of the question, please?
To make a clear statement here, we will have to track the amounts or percentages of the nutritional intake of all three, right?
Okay. Actually, yes, we have to track, absolutely. So we have to track the intake of the donor, of the mother, and basically of the infant as well, what he's receiving from other sources other than human milk, to be able to provide a optimized nutrition for that baby. That's absolutely right.
And the last part of the question says, if someone is feeding DHM, did they only avoid formula the first few days, or did they also support the mother in lactation?
Well, actually, we don't know, because all or most of the data you have are aggregated data of the DHM use in total, or DHM use on specific time dates, like on initiation of enteral nutrition or discharge. But that's a good point. Sometimes you can't tell from the data. Well, in our unit, our aim is to use donor human milk only as a bridge to until mother's own lactation is initiated. And so this is our main effort. So we even tell the parents before birth. So we visit them on the maternal ward if they have a impeding preterm birth, and we instruct them how to get rapidly into lactation afterwards, and we tell them we will bridge that time by using donor human milk, but it's always the second best choice.
Thank you. There is a question for Sharon. Can you talk a little more about defrosting milk from bags? We get a lot of milk that way and would like to improve our defrosting process.
Actually, we try to find a way that we be able to preserve the milk, although the bags are torn. So first we must check that if there are any tears in the bag, they are small and won't affect the microbiology tests. And once we make sure that if there are tears that are very, very tiny and probably won't damage the milk, so we clean the surface of the bag and then we cut it and we take off the frozen milk and put it in stainless steel box that was sanitized before, and it is closed and it is with the details of this specific donor and the dates of the donation. It is kept in a refrigerator to be thawed, and then we pour it when it is liquid. We pour it into the glass containers and we use it. In that way, we stopped throwing away milk that it was. We managed to increase our intake of milk in more than 15% because the freezers in Israel are very condensed and many bags are damaged.
The same person is asking, what are you using to clean the surface of the bags?
Okay. We have a special dishwasher. We also validated a way to clean the entire facility. We use hydrogen peroxide, which is I think what Mother Nature designed as the best way to disinfect pathogens. There is no problem of leftovers, and there is no need to be upset about or to be careful about penetrating or organic penetration into the milk. So hydrogen peroxides are very good products in this field, and this is the way that we usually disinfect surfaces.
Thank you. There is a question for Daniel. Do you have a software for the networking of the banks? If not, what is the must-have for a software for that?
That's a very good question, because if you're located in Germany by June 2027, you have to have a solution in hand, because then the new regulation about donor human milk will come into effect, and that regulation asks you to use a digital solution, a software system, to track your milk and to organize your workflow. We at the moment don't have a dedicated software system for that. Like many milk banks, we have in-house solutions from our IT department, which are actually not licensed as order entry systems or provider systems. But it's a solution we just use at the moment. We are looking for different systems, and there are several. I don't want to use any names. You can Google them. I think everyone has its backsides and advantages, and I think you have to see which one fits for your purpose. The problem with all those products is they're very expensive. And at least here in Germany, we're not financed. So basically all the milk banks are side projects from neonatologists in their departments. And so it's really hard to accrue financing and funding for such software systems. But then in the end, you will need to have them in 2 years' time.
Thank you. There is another question for Dr. Sharon. We are sorry for all the drama in your country with the war. What system do you use for communication with all the hospitals that need milk?
Okay. I think Daniel mentioned the IT challenges. Currently, we use a simple Google Doc or Google Sheet. and each hospital has its own a code, which somebody from outside won't understand which hospital it is, and they just order the needed volume each week. In case of emergency, we also have a WhatsApp chat with them, and they ask for emergency supply. And of course, my mobile is always open, and sometimes there are cases that I've been asked for urgent supply, and we try to. I think that we understand that for us it is a life-saving event. So providing human milk is something which is very similar to provide a blood donation. If there is a need, there is a need. There is no hesitation. We should do everything we can in order to provide the needed milk.
Thank you. This is for Daniel and Guido. Are there emergency plans for Italy or Germany in place, or experiences from other countries?
Yes, we have a project at the moment that is in the phase of evaluation, where we are trying to put together at least the banks working in the northern part of Italy. That means approximately 10 human milk banks. And each of these banks will save 10% of the collected milk for emergency. All the milk will be sent to a hub that will be located in the northern part of Italy. It will be probably Milan or Turin. It will be decided very soon. The milk that will arrive in this hub will be lyophilized in such a way that it can remain stable for at least 24 months. And as soon as there is a need of this for a specific emergency, the lyophilized milk will be sent to the place of need.
I can tell from Germany that in the wake of the war in Ukraine, we have realized we are unprepared for many things. And I think the idea that infant nutrition, especially donor human milk, could be part of a contingency plan, emergency plan for a disaster, that idea does not exist at the moment in Germany, I would say.
Thank you very much. I think we don't have any other questions, Guido. So maybe you would like to have some.
No, I have a question, one question for Daniel and one question for Sharon. The question for Daniel, you told that there are some human milk banks that are working with raw human milk and some other with pasteurized human milk. Can you quantify the number of banks working with one system and with the other? And they are connected in the same network, or they are different networks?
Yeah, so basically from the two networks who are currently running, so one is in Berlin, and it's just only one large milk bank serving all the city, and they use pasteurized milk. And in our hub, we have one hub is using non-pasteurized raw donor milk, and the other one we're using pasteurized one. So, and if we would need to exchange milk, we would send unpasteurized frozen milk to them, and this is basically their responsibility. What they do with that, they need to rescreen it, obviously, and they need to pasteurize it if need be. Or on the other hand, we would receive pasteurized milk from the other hub. So this is basically the plan, but fortunately at the time, both of us, we do have plenty and enough of donor human milk, so there need to be no exchange. From the 41 milk banks, there are 13 or 14 who are using non-pasteurized milk. And actually there is even a step further. There is a project at the moment called NeoMilk, and they are evaluating the use of non-tested, non-pasteurized donor human milk. So this is a discussion which is going on at the moment, if that is feasible and all, if you should do that at all. And I think this will be procedure will be ended with the new European regulation, because then donor human milk will be defined as substance of human origin, and that includes a rigorous testing of every batch and pasteurization if need be.
Okay, thank you, Daniel, and for Sharon. So if I want to understand, this is the only human milk bank working in your country, and are you able to satisfy the needs of all the very low birth weight infants born in your country?
And even more. So this is why you had the emergency reserve. So actually the average volume that we address to each month of the neonatal intensive care units is approximately 160 liters. Currently, after we finish our emergency reserves, we tripled our production rate, and we provide an additional of 250 liters for the war infants. And we are able to do that because we have zero waste of milk. So we use every milk bag, we use every milk that we processed. And actually, I think that during the entire 3 years that the milk is at full production, we never had to throw away a batch, although we test each one. Okay, we always we either directed it to infant food regulation, or we identified there are problems at the pre-screening stage, and we identified the specific donor that is not good that is not good enough, and we took her out. We took the milk out, actually.
Okay, thank you. There are other questions?
No, dear Guido.
No. Okay, so I think it's time to close the session. We thank the two speakers. They made a really wonderful presentation showing us two different projects, and both the projects seems to work very well. So, but before ending this session, I want to give the word to our president, Sertaç Aslanoglu, who will have the last word. Sertaç, are you with us? So now,
her camera is switched off.
Okay, so
she's muted. Yeah.
She's muted, but she's present without voice, or she's not present at all. So probably she's not present at all. Okay, so I will terminate this session, informing all the people attending this workshop that we are preparing the 4th International Donor Milk Research Congress that will be held in Milan in June 17 this year. So people who are interested in joining this meeting can start to organize the trip, and the program will be shown very soon in the EMBA website. Thank you to everybody. Yes, there are still other information, and these are related to the next webinar of this series, that is the series organized by EMBA and Medela together. The first one, the next one will be Thursday, June 27, and the title of this webinar will be More Human Milk in the Neonatal Unit, Yes, but How? The speaker will be Sven Wellman and Professor Miguel Sanz da Pipaon, and Sertaç will be the moderator. There is still another one, okay. This is another webinar, the third one, that will be organized Tuesday, October 8th, always this year. And the title of this webinar will be Update on Virus Transmission through Human Milk and Regulation of Donor Human Milk in Europe. I will be the moderator, and the two speakers will be David Lembo, who will speak about virus, and Seta Saslonoglou, and she will inform us about new regulation in Europe related to donor human milk. So thank you to everybody and hope to see you very soon.